Okay. Good evening. Welcome to our Stats Club event this evening. My name is Mufado. I'm the current president of the American Statistical Association Student Chapter UTSA. Today we'll talk about kind of an intro to actuarial science, as well as the little bit of a demo on coaching actuaries. So I'll go a little bit in detail, beginning in terms of what is actuarial science and kind of the paths and um, exams, and then exam study, as well as coaching actuaries, and then a couple other resources and club kind of housekeeping things at the very end. But to give it a little bit of background, we are partnered with Coaching Actuaries under their preferred club program. This means that they give us discount codes. So on top of the like the college student discount code that you would normally get, they add an extra discount on that. That essentially makes their study materials much cheaper for students. And so our partnership requires us to do multiple things. So we'll post their materials, right? So if you follow us on Instagram, you'll see that we post things about their, like, just marketing materials that they give us about their materials they have, or like their study products they have. And another piece of that is the demo. So just showing people how to actually use the Coaching Actuaries website. So if you buy a subscription, what would that look like? So that's something that we've done for the past, I think this is the 4th semester we're doing it. And every time we've tried to kind of reframe that demo along with something else, whether it's like kind of like a tips and tricks kind of session, or just something to help so that it's not the same thing every time, because it can feel like it's the same thing every time. But just to begin, I'll start with who I am. My name is Mufado. I am a senior majoring in actuarial science with a minor in statistics. I am the current Stats Club president. I've been a member of this club since my freshman year, kind of. I wasn't as involved in my freshman year, but I did become the vice president at the end of my sophomore year, and then served as a vice president my whole sophomore year, and then became the president this year. In terms of why I am talking about actuarial science, at least what gives me, I guess, a little bit of authority. I don't think it gives me enough authority, but the basic understanding that I have is because I have gone through the process of studying for 2 of those exams. I'm currently studying for IFM. I also did intern at USAA as an actuarial analyst intern, and I did receive an offer from USAA to come back as a full-time actuarial analyst after I graduate, which I plan on accepting, which I have accepted, and plan on going through with after I graduate. So that is why I just wanted to give a little bit of background so that it doesn't feel like it's just random, or like the tips are random, at least. So what is actuarial science? Also, if you have any questions, feel free to just stop me, drop it in the chat. If not, I'll also leave time at the end for questions. But yeah, what is actuarial science? I don't know how many times I'm not really dyslexic, but like the word actuarial, I don't know why I always type the A first, but if you do see a typo, just ignore it. So, like, what do actuaries do? This is kind of hard for a lot of people to answer, even like actual actuaries. So it's always weird when you're like a student who's majoring in actuarial science and people ask you, what is that? And like your answer changes every time, where you're just like, I don't, business. Sometimes people say like, what's, like, especially right now, because I'm graduating, they're like, oh, like, what are you, what's your degree in? And I say actuarial science. And they look at me and I say business. And they're like, oh, business. And I'm like, yes, business. So really, what is it? So, it does say that on there. So it's the kind of the discipline of studying and quantifying risks. So your risks in sort of like finance and insurance, using math, stats, probability, data analytics, all those things in order to just quantify risk, like a financial risks that might come with, like insurance or financial decisions, or property casualty, all those sorts of insurances. So really, I think the next slides explains it a little bit better, but there is a website that if you're here and you have heard about actuarial science, and maybe you're an actuarial science major, beingactuary.org. This is probably the first website that I clicked on when I thought maybe I want to become an actuary. Like, what is an actuary? And this is the website they always send people. So I thought it'd be nice to just add it on this slide. On the right, you do see a lot of kind of insurance companies. So it's some of the places that actuaries work. So Willis Towers Watson is not technically like an insurance. They're like more like a consulting, like actuarial consulting firm. But you do have, like State Farm, Deloitte is also another consulting. So you can work in sort of consultancy as an actuary. You can also work in an insurance company. We'll talk a little bit more about that. But these are some of the companies. There's a whole lot of places that actuaries can work in. So like there's different types of actuaries, and sometimes this is more down to kind of the path you go down. We'll talk about that a little bit more. But like the general, really, really general, in the general sense, you do have like pricing actuaries. And these are like the actuaries that are really on the front end of assessing that risk and then the probability structure in order to just price your insurance premium. So this can be like property and casualty, or this could be life insurance as well. And then like calculating payouts, claims, and things like that. So you're much more involved in the actual pricing of a product and figuring out the right price and then matching that with the objectives of the business. And then you do have savings and retirement actuaries. This is more on the life side of things. So like if you go down the life track, which we'll talk about the difference between the casualty side and the life side, but this is more long term. It's like retirement, those sorts of products, investments. They deal more with those. And then you do have consulting actuaries, which you can consult as a pricing actuary. You can also consult as a savings and retirement actuary as well. It is also an option for people. I did include, again, other companies. So you do see USAA there. So depending on where you see yourself, or if you do, a lot of people really go the route that they got an internship in. So you might get an internship in pricing, in like auto pricing. So you might just end up going that route, or you might get one in life and you might just pick that route. So it just really depends on that. Or if you really have like an inclination towards retirement and those kinds of things, calculating, pricing those sorts of products, you can also go that route. But this is generally like you'd be working in a company, in another company, and this is more like you're part of a larger consulting company and you're working on different projects with different companies. So that's the general types of actuaries. In terms of becoming an actuary, there, at least in the United States, there are two paths you could take. So you can go down the SOA route, the Society of Actuaries. This is more life, health, pension, retirement. So like dealing with life insurance, annuities, asset management, investment strategies. So if you're interested in kind of like markets and kind of calculating those annuities, life insurance things, that's the route that you would go down. The exams are a bit different. The preliminary exams are the same for both, but once you get past, I think, the third exam, the path for becoming an actuary does change. So you do have to pick which one you want to go down, and the content of the exams is a little bit different as well. The other side is the Casualty Actuarial Society, which is more property and casualty. So auto insurance, like homeowners, renters, catastrophe reinsurance. It's more short term. So that's another big thing. Another big distinction for these is that for, let's say, auto insurance, those rates are typically adjusted annually, versus for like life insurance products, right? You set something for the next 30 years. So it's a much more long-term analysis versus for auto insurance. You can make a mistake and that can be easily fixed within the next year, versus for the SOA side, you have to be very specific. They have websites, so definitely see the SOA.org or CASAct.org for more information. They have a ton of information on their websites to help you learn more, kind of learn more about the profession and kind of networking opportunities and things like that they have. So feel free to check those out. I will try and send out this slide presentation to everyone. If you are, so I can only send it to members because I don't have everyone's email that's on this call. But if you do join our organization on Rowdy Link, when I send out this, you'll receive it because your email will be tracked on Rowdy Link, and I can send out messaging. This is how I usually send out like information about upcoming meetings. So big piece, actuarial exams. There are a lot of exams that you need to take as an actuary to become fully credentialed. That isn't to say that you have to take all the exams. So some people, a good number of people only go through like the associateship, right? So you do have, I think here I'm starting with the casualty side of it, property and casualty side of it. But there are, so you see here, it says 9 exams. There's also a couple other things built in there, like these online courses you might have to take and VEs. So essentially, I'll try not to gloss over this stuff, because I know that when I was learning about actuarial science, I was very confused about the exams and what really all of it meant. But essentially, I like this. Sorry, I hate the little bar that pops out at the bottom. But I really like this graphic because it shows kind of like how the journey kind of looks. So you start, maybe you take your first exam, exam P, the probability exam. Past that, you take FM. You can take FN first, P first. It doesn't really matter. There are also other kind of exams you do need to take, like VEEs, the validation by educational experience. You don't necessarily have, so if you're an actuarial science major, or even a college of business major, I think you need like accounting 1, principles of finance, and like microeconomics. So if you've taken those courses, you can use your transcript to get credit for these VEs. So the assumption is that you've taken these courses. If you haven't, you would have to take like exams, like those exams to get those VEs. One quick difference as well is that for CAS, at least this, well, for this, at least this current year, there was an exam that this is this exam 3F. The reason it has a little asterisk on it is because it is being phased out. So by the end of this year, they won't be offering this exam. They're changing it to an online course. And this is IFM. So that's the third preliminary exam. And then you take all your exams up until the 7th exam, and you become an associate of the Casualty Actuarial Society. And then you take 2 more. Actually, no, you take 3 more, and then you become your FCAS. The really big benefit for taking the exams is a lot of companies have promotions and like, what is it called? Like a pay raises, like a really structured pay raise system that is tied to your to the exams you have. So being an ACAS, an associate, you're getting paid more. Being a fellow, if you finish all your exams, you're getting paid a whole lot more. You have a lot more authority, and you have access to a lot more positions within the company as well. So there is a benefit to taking the exams. The company will give you paid time. Most companies will give you paid time off to study for the exams and things like that. At least USA does. I've heard other general insurance companies will do that for their actuaries. And so there is support. Some will even provide like funding for like the materials. So this is the casualty like the CAS side, which is the side that I plan on going down. This is more of the SOA side. The SOA side is older, so there are a lot more paths to go down. So the first table you see up here is this is getting to your associateship on the SOA side. So like I said earlier, the first couple of exams are the same. So you got FM, you got exam P, couple of VEs. I see they have removed IFM on here, but they're still, I think the last exam dates for IFM are going to be like late, like July and November are the last dates. And then a couple courses, a few more exams, you get your associateship. But the really good thing I see about the SOA side is that you can pick multiple tracks to go down in your fellowship. So you can go down the retirement benefits, you can go general insurance, corporate finance. And so there's a lot of routes you can go down when you do the SOA side. It is, again, like I said, older than the casualty actuarial society side of things. And so there's a little bit more variation in your fellowship than not. And then really what we focus on, as college students are the preliminary exams. So a lot of internships, actuarial internships will say, good candidate needs to have at least one exam when you apply. So this is something to keep in mind. You do need to try and pass kind of one of these, at least try and sit for one before you graduate. The hope would be that, our degree program kind of improves enough to where that information is communicated earlier on. So you do have, there's a little bit more structure to your degree plan. And when you take the exam, a little bit more intentionality there. So you have exam P, probability. So this is basic probability. You got univariate, multivariate probability distributions. Typically, you would take this exam after you've taken Cal 1, Cal 2, and maybe Cal 3. And Dr. Hahn's probability and stats class, but it is doable without having taken all those courses. If you are able to teach yourself some of these concepts, you can certainly do it. Sanjana's on the call. She did it. She passed her exam P in like January. So it is very much doable if you just set aside the time to study for it. They take a lot of time. We'll talk about that. FM is more, it's financial math. So exam 2 deals with a lot with annuities, bonds, loans, interest rates. And the idea of like the main concept really is time value of money, being able to look at transactions and cash flows across defined periods of time, sometimes undefined in terms of dividends and stuff like that, or a little bit not necessarily as complex mathematically, but a lot of equations as well. Just financial math. Is not like calculus 3 where you're doing like triple integrals. Then the third one, IFM, which I said is being phased out by the end of the year. More advanced finance topics, derivatives, deals more with markets and like options. It feels more like it's on the SOA side, more heavily leans on the SOA side than it does really on the CAS side. So these are the preliminary exams. We will talk a little bit more about like what makes the exams hard. So like if you go online and you look up the pass rates for these exams, they're not very encouraging. I think for P and FM, it's like low 40s, like 40 something percent. So they are quite hard exams in that they require a lot of time to learn the concepts and a very particular way of studying for them. So they're definitely not comparable to like a traditional college course or a final exam. Like they're very much, you need a lot of dedicated time to study for them. They require a lot of knowledge of the material, not just knowledge, but being able to actually understand the material and be given a problem you've never seen before and be able to work through it using your knowledge. So really application of the knowledge you've gained through your studying. For P and FM, I think P is 3 hours. FM, I think, is 3 hours. Actually, I think FM might be slightly longer, like 3 hours and 30 minutes. IFM is 3 hours as well. So the general study tip is you study 100 hours per exam hour. So for a P and FM, about 300 hours. Some people need less, some people need more, just depending on kind of your familiarity with the concepts. And like if you've taken a probability class before, then it's probably, you don't need to go through basic probability. So depending on that, some people, yeah, you need more. Really, I don't necessarily adhere to really the amount of hours you take. I think it's really however long it takes you to understand the information. That's really what matters, not really the hours, but it really gives you a benchmark of what to expect, right? So you're not gonna fully understand the information after studying for like 20 hours, although some people have said that they did it, which there's geniuses out there, I'll just say. But so this just gives you, like, this is what makes exams hard. It's a lot of dedication, but if you put in the time, then you can do it. So like study tips in general. So the first thing is you want to pick a good study guide. So there's a lot of manuals and resources out there. I'm pretty sure there's a couple like free things you could probably find, like PDFs that will teach you these concepts for the preliminary exams for sure. So a few of the really popular ones, ACTAX Study Manual, ASM Study Manual. You got TIA, I forget what TIA stands for, online seminars, and you also have Coaching Actuaries. So the really big differences between the top two and the bottom two is that Coaching Actuaries and TIA, they're more interactive, a little bit more videos and lots of practice problems, like a pretty good user interface, whereas ACTEX and ASM are more like a textbook. So depending on which one you really like, what you prefer, right? So like ASM is quicker, like it gets to the point. So if you have more background knowledge of like the actual syllabus, you can actually use that a little bit to it will move you quickly through the concept, versus these give a lot of details. So if you have a lot of time to study, you can probably use these. But I certainly prefer the having multiple things available. So when I started studying for exam P, I bought the ACTEX manual. Then I also bought Coaching Actuaries, a subscription, and that was pretty expensive because the study materials are not cheap at all. And I ended up using Coaching Actuaries. I used ACTEX manual for like maybe a third of the time. Then I realized that Coaching Actuaries was giving me everything that I needed, and it gave me a way of tracking my progress that I wasn't getting with these textbook style kind of manuals. And so that's why I ended up just using, when I studied for FM, I only used Coaching Actuaries, and that worked out well. And we'll talk a little bit more about what makes Coaching Actuaries special. And then step 2 is create a study schedule. This is pretty crucial. You can't just sit down and say, I'm gonna study maybe tomorrow. You gotta actually like schedule time during the week and say, from this hour to this hour, I'm gonna spend it on exam P. And even within those study sessions, have goals for the study sessions. So like, I want to have gone through this concept. I want to review this concept by the end of today. I want to know this formula by the end of today. And then the exams usually take about 3 to 5 months to study for. So given how much time you have, I see something in the chat. Doesn't sound, I don't know what that emoji means. Is that good or bad? I'm guessing bad. It's very much doable. It just does take a little bit of time to go through. Let me see. No, it's I don't mean to scare you. It's not. Sanjana can speak a little bit more too. She recently went through exam P. It's once you get the hang of just being consistent with studying for it, by the end of like 3 months, 4 months should be good. Like you can go sit for it. And then Coaching Actuaries actually gives you a document that allows you to create a study schedule, which is phenomenal. Like I've used that every time. It's great. And then the biggest thing is just follow your study process, like trust the process. Because when you start out, it's gonna feel like you know nothing, which for me, that's the case. Like I sit down and I'm like, my brain is blank. I know nothing about any of this content I'm about to go through. And then from that moment is when I start saying, okay, I'll start learning, and then follow the process, whether it's like you do a review at the end of every week, do it. Like just do it. And then over time, you start realizing how much of an impact and compounding that knowledge does. Take lots and lots and lots of practice exams, lots of practice problems. That is probably the biggest thing. As much as reading and watching videos can teach you, actually doing it and having the problem presented to you in multiple different ways will probably be one of the greatest ways to learn. And so find a good kind of a good balance between that first phase of just learning the content and the second phase of doing practice problems. Make sure you take like your practice exams and exam settings. Like I have friends that are like, yeah, when I take my practice exams, I like to take them at the time that I'm going to be having my actual exam. So if my exam is scheduled to be from 3 to 6 o'clock, I will take my practice exam from 3 to 6 o'clock. I was like, that's the dedication. That is preparation. I usually don't do that. You know, my schedule is a little bit more volatile. So I'll set a time that works for my schedule that's not necessarily matching that. But people do try as much as possible to make sure that when they get in that room, they're as comfortable as possible. They've been through that process of being in a timed exam. You don't want your first exam to be the actual exam. And then you start worrying about, oh, you know, I'm running low on time, or like be in an exam setting, no distractions, set a timer, and things like that. Those things really do help because it's just like, oh, I've done this before. I've done this 100 times before. So now time for the demo. So I'm actually gonna scoot over to our Coaching Actuaries website here. So if you just type Coaching Actuaries, it will pull up. This is their website. I will log in. Hopefully I am logged in automatically. Like that's not safe, but like, oh, there we go. I am logged in. So if you do, I will show how to actually go through the process of using the codes. Maybe I'll actually log out and do that first, because I think that's also crucial. There you go. You do see my email. I'm gonna restart this. So on the website, we'll start it here. So on the website, they do give you a lot of information, kind of like, you know, some of the things I told you, the things that they kind of offer you. So it's, you know, the manual, you can take practice exams, and you are essentially like your performance is tracked. There are coaches on this platform who will answer if you have questions. Adapt is their system where we can take practice exams. We'll look at Adapt, but essentially you take practice exams, practice quizzes, exams, and it will track how you're doing and the concepts you're doing badly on, which currently I am doing bad on all the concepts. But this is the materials that they offer on kind of on the website. So you do see under students, they do have student discounts. So they show you how to get a discount. You do need to upload an image or something of your schedule or your ID or something to be verified that shows your name. So something that just shows your enrollment. And then these are some of the student discounts. So where they're applied. So if you're just getting Adapt, you get 15% off. So it shows you the tiers. Adapt plus Learn. This is the most expensive option. This is how much, you know, they take off. But on top of that, you can be like us. This is what we are. We're a preferred club. So on top of the discounts you just saw, it's much greater discount added on top of that. So that's really what that means. So essentially, once you're ready to choose an exam, let's say you want to study for exam P, like they'll talk to you, you read through the videos about their process. They give you information about the exam, when the sittings are, which I didn't mention. So the sittings aren't every month. So they're each other month. So P is like, I think January, March, like that way. And then FM is like February, April. So like I think six sittings a year that are available for those. And then they change for each exam. So they do give you all the information you need. And then so you can definitely see how expensive it is. So if you're not a student, quite expensive. You can choose how much access you want. So like you want 6 months, 3 months, I think 4 months. You can do like a 7-day access. Usually I think the first time I used it, I got a 90-day access. And then usually now I get like the 180-day access. If you're a student, it gets decreased, but it's still quite a little bit of money. With our discount codes, it goes down much further. So let's say I were to try and register. So when you get through here, you add the codes, which this is one of them. That's one of the codes, but actually I think that's one of the older ones. That's okay. So you can save quite a lot of money. You add the codes, it'll show you a new subtotal, and then you upload your files. So like your student ID or your existing like schedule, your current schedule, put in your information and your order. So that's that. We're gonna go back to the homepage, and I'll actually go through Coaching Actuaries itself. So let me log in. Hopefully that's the right password. Oh, it's not a good thing. I should change that. But this is the homepage. A couple of things to note on the homepage is that the Society of Actuaries actually releases questions. So one cool thing about Coaching Actuaries is that they actually compile all of those questions for you. They might take a second to load. Let's see. Oh, so you said, why did I decide CAS over SOA? Sorry if I missed that earlier, but my internship was in auto pricing. So I picked that because, at least the work that I did was interesting enough for me to want to continue pursuing that. No real draw to one or the other. It was just that I did auto pricing work. So I was like, I want to do property and casualty. And then I was offered a role within property and casualty. So I decided that was probably best for me to stay within that. That took a while to load. I don't know what the problem is there, but like they do have released questions, right, for the exam. So you can go through these. These are like officially from the Society of Actuaries. So if you're like, I want real questions for them, that's where you'd get them. They give you a formula sheet, pretty substantial. Hopefully it does let me download it. Okay, awesome. So for FM, this one's a bit long because this is IFM. So the one for P and FM is much shorter than this. The one for IFM is just long because it is there's a lot more like words and definitions that they have on here that you don't really need for P and FM. So let's close that. They do have the study schedule that I talked about. I'm going to pull that up. I know. Let's just drop it on the desktop. Please open. My laptop is doing good today. We are doing fabulous. So like, here's what it is, right? So it gives you a little bit of information about like phase 1, phase 2. You can pick your exam date here, pick when you'd like to start the first phase, how many days you want to do practice exams, at least 30. And then essentially it will tell you when to study for the concept. So like, do this concept for this however many days, when you should be like done with that concept by. So this to me was super, super useful and just keeping me on track with my schedule, not getting too caught. So if I don't understand a concept, I usually start like just really hyper focusing on it instead of moving on, and I get stuck. So this kind of gave me like a good sort of direction of keep moving. Like this isn't like you can't get stuck in this one place. And so that was really good. So this is another thing that I really, really like about coaching actuaries. And then next you have, so this is with the adapt and learn. So you get, like I'll go through one of the sections. So it gives you quick overview of everything that's needed for that exam, plus review videos. We'll look at those a little bit. You get a little completion here if you go through all the stuff that's within that chapter. Gives you a little bit of a kind of like a difficulty range, how often you're likely to see this section on there, and then how many hours of study are recommended for you to spend on that concept. I'll click on one of my kind of favorite concepts, I guess. So like the actual manual, if you're one person that likes to read, there's a lot of really nicely formatted things written down. When I got stuck on a topic, I tried not to get too stuck. So if there's something that I didn't understand, I really just moved on, and then I would try to review it. Sometimes there were topics that I would be like, honestly, like when I studied for P, my first exam, I did I would skip, like I got to the very end of studying, and then I started doing a lot of practice problems, and that helped me understand some of the things that I couldn't understand just by reading and writing notes. And so it's just going back, like keep going back. So if you do get stuck, move on, learn other things, but then still look over it, do practice problems on it until it will click. I promise you. It sometimes it takes a bit, but it will click. And sometimes it just needs somebody else to explain it to you. So if you know somebody else is studying the same exam for the same exam at the same time as you, just ask them to explain it to you, and they might have a better way of conceptualizing it that might work for you. So there's multiple ways you can go about that. You could even, sometimes I'll just go on YouTube and find some random YouTuber explaining the concept. They might not even be an actuary, and sometimes they explain it better. So try not to get too stuck on it. Stick to that study schedule you have, but build in periods of like review within that study schedule. So I try to do that like on the weekends, like maybe like, or like the days that I don't want to study, because even when I have a schedule, there's days where I'm just too tired. I'm like, oh, I don't really feel like doing a whole practice exam today, but I still want to, make sure that I'm studying. So I'll maybe just go over the problems that I've already done, just flip through them, look through the solutions, or like look at the formulas. So there's ways to still stay productive and not get too stuck, but it is possible to just feel like, and if you do feel like that, maybe take a break. Sometimes that helps. Eat, drink some water, breathe a little bit. Sometimes it's easy to forget that when you get really anxious, and it's very easy to feel like that with these exams. A cool thing that I like, people that have questions about something they read up here, you can just post your question down here in the discussion, and the coach will respond. They respond pretty promptly. Like this, he responded the next day, and then he responded the very same day. Like very, very responsive. Like not even like you won't feel isolated within that. And then they also, have videos, like really, really nice looking videos, like nice illustrations. If you want the transcript, you can do that. If somebody has a question, they can ask questions there. Quite a bit at the very end. So for some of these, they even have like, I don't know how, oh, I did good on this quiz. Okay. They have a little short quiz at the very end. So just check your understanding. So you can do that. And they'll show you the solution. Sometimes for the more complex problems, they'll have an actual video solution as well as like a written solution. So multiple ways to learn from that. And then if you have questions about the problem, those are also answered here. You can ask, and those are answered down here. So it's really, really nice. I like that structure. So if I don't feel like writing or like reading, I'll go watch a video. And then it goes through all the sections that are needed for the syllabus. Like they will not teach you something that you don't need. And then at the very end, actually, one piece that I forgot to mention is within these, at the very end of each section, there's a summary page that just summarizes the section. I find this really helpful as well in order to like just know what to focus on, because sometimes it can be a lot of information. So it helps to know like, oh, this is something, these are the main concepts that I should really, really know. Then the details I'll figure out a little bit later. And then at the very end of the actual sessions, they do have review videos. So for every section, like they'll review all the information. So if you want to do a little review, or you feeling a little lazy, or you're on a treadmill, or just want to watch something, watch a review video from time to time, I don't know, that you could do that as well. But these are also really helpful. So if you've done a concept like a couple of weeks ago and you want to stay, refresh your memory, this is one way of doing it. Just go through the video. So there's a lot here. Then adapt. This is where the fun happens. This is where you really grind out. So like, so within each of these, it shows you, once you start taking practice problems, it shows you how well you're doing, which you start out doing not too hot, but the objective is to get this number to 7. So I've taken like 1 practice exam, and usually, you take probably around like over 10 practice exams over time, but you can build quizzes. The cool thing is that you can build a quiz, select the topics you want to focus on. And within those topics, you can even select the subsections you want to focus on, the ones that you're doing worse on and the ones you're doing better on. And then you can select the size of the quiz. You can also select the difficulty. So like generally they won't let you pick a difficulty of over 10. There are questions that might be, or over 10 difficulty. It's not necessarily that they're that difficult, it's just that the understanding. The other piece of it is that the actual exam itself, on the range of 10 for difficulty, the actual exams are about between a 4 and a 6. They range from there. So like if you can get to an earned level of a 7, then you are exam ready. Like you have like a 90% chance of passing the exam. Like great. So that's typically what people aim for. So once you start taking practice exams, it essentially, this number goes up the better you do. And the exams get harder as well the better you do. So if you keep going up until you get to a 7, I reached earned level 7 both for P and FM. So it is doable, and I've passed both P and FM on my first tries. And I think largely because of Adapt. So Adapt is a pretty great tool. This is why most people use Coaching Actuaries. They like this, and they have tons, over 1,000 practice problems you can do. I don't think I missed anything on here. Like if you have any, like I did notice on a, I think it was on a question they had on here. So like they make their own questions, which are very much like the SOA questions, but they'll use like funny names, and they use like, they were doing this thing where they use like names from like movies. And I noticed that they used a book from, names from a book, and I comment on it and they responded. They were like, yay, well done. You noticed the literature. But like cool things like that. So it's very personable, doesn't feel clunky like some of the ones that I did try to use before. So that's the general gist of Coaching Actuaries. We do have codes. If you want to use the codes, you do have to be a member. So please join on RowdyLink. Then you can reach out to me, and then I can provide you with the discount codes that will get you that really, really sweet discount that you'll get. Now back to, oh, we don't want to see my grades. Back to our presentation here. That was the demo. And then, so that's it for most of the actuarial science things. If you have questions, I'm going to give a little bit of time, but if you just want to give a heads up in terms of the events that are coming up for Stats Club. So we do have Dr. Min Wang. He's a professor in our department, Management Science and Statistics. He'll be presenting. We are trying, so Dr. Han hasn't been confirmed, but really trying to get him to see if he'll show up on the 21st. If not, we'll have a different speaker. We do have 2 workshops coming up, one intro to parallel computing in R. So how do you run your R code faster, more efficiently? So we'll have, that would be a great one. It will be in person. We'll also have like a panel, so a panel discussion on kind of how do you get into internships like USAA? How do you get to interview? I interviewed with USAA, Liberty Mutual, State Farm, and I got offers from all of them. Like, how does that happen? How do you get into a PhD program, a fully funded PhD program? So we have multiple seniors who have been a part of Stats Club that really want to give back, and this is their way of giving back, is by participating on this panel. So if you have questions about those things, we're planning that to be in person, on campus on a Friday, like early afternoon. We'll also have a last general meeting and a pizza social at the same time, Friday the 22nd. We're trying to really end a little bit earlier this semester because finals come up and then people don't really want to come out to meetings around that time. So we try to be cognizant of that. And we're having a last meeting a little bit, much earlier than we usually do. We will be tabling in person, and we want to kind of open this up. Like if y'all want to table as members, recruit other members, get to meet other people in the program, in the organization. The kind of proposed date is like Friday, April 15th, or that Thursday. So we'll talk a little bit more about the date, and there'll be information sent out about that. But if you haven't already joined our club, followed us on Instagram, joined our group me, we have a Discord, please use this link. It'll take you to all the links to the things, all links, all things Stats Club. I forgot to put the QR code up here for it. If I find it, I'll send it in an email, but please, this will make it much easier to know when events are happening and things like that. I'll leave this up for a second and then I'll stop sharing my screen so I can answer any questions anyone may have.
Musato, in regards to the P exam, would you say that you only need Coaching Actuaries as a tool, or did you find it helpful to have 3?
I would say Coaching Actuaries
Okay.
is enough. Yeah.
It does get a little overwhelming, huh?
Yeah, it's like I didn't know what to get. Like there wasn't, like no one really told me. And so I looked online and people like ACTEX manual and then Coaching Actuaries. And so I was like, maybe I'll get both. I had a really short amount of time as well. So I wasn't getting the really expensive option of like 6 months. I had like, I think like less than 2 months or a little less than 3 months to study. And so I did both, and then I ended up only really using Coaching Actuaries. Like it fit more with the way I like studying, and that worked.
Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you for your question. I'll stop sharing my screen so that I can see the chat a little bit better. I get a little distracted and don't see. Any other questions anyone may have? I know some people showed up a little bit later. Let me see. That's the attendance link. If you haven't already clicked it, it'll just track us to see. We did have like a kind of like a membership thing going on, but it was really hard to keep track of that because of COVID. And I really didn't think it was that fair to like, I guess to penalize. We don't necessarily penalize. We celebrate the ones that are showing up. But even then, I thought it would be better if if we were in person and doing things more in person, then maybe that system would be more meaningful. So we haven't really kept track of it, but we will probably try and build it back next semester when I will not be here. But any other questions anyone may have? If you don't have any, if you can't think of any, I'm dropping my email in the chat. I know Sanjana is also on the call. She's also taken exam P quite recently as well. So She may also be of service if you have any questions, but that is my Gmail if you have any questions.
I have one quick question real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
For you said you did an internship with USAA earlier. So
Yes.
when you got interviewed for that, how did that go? If you don't mind me asking, like how does what are some examples of like questions that they would ask or things like that?
It was pretty, I won't say relaxed, not necessarily relaxed because it is an interview, but
Yeah, of course.
it was personable because it was two people, and we'll talk a little bit
Mhm.
more about this in that panel. But it was really talking about the experiences that I've had that build not necessarily just my kind of my skills. So right, so you have
Mhm.
they take people that have passed at least one exam, so they know you're
Of course.
academically inclined, so they know those things. And so it's really about, are you a curious person who wants to learn? What things have you done that show that you have curiosity and you can learn on your own, you can take initiative? So like if you've things like being an officer in a club, so I was really able to talk about experiences like that. So like, oh, I can work with other people, not just in group projects and classes, but I can work with the board and put on events. I can communicate clearly with people. I can present things. And so like those other skills that you would need in that environment. So yes, they know you can learn the information because you've passed an exam already. So that's already past the
Mhm.
point. You have a good GPA, that's past the point. And so now it's what kind of brings you or sets you apart from everyone else who already has those things, right? The exam, the good GPA. So it's the interpersonal skills you may have, the things you're interested in. Sometimes they might just like you as a person. They think you fit better on that team versus someone they don't really think is authentic. So like really bringing yourself and say, hey, I'm here to learn. I'm willing to learn. I don't, I know something, but I don't know anything at the same
Yeah.
time. And like really specific things as well are scenario based questions. So like, tell me a time when you like tell me a time when you had to resolve a conflict, like some of the really stereotypical ones. But
Yeah.
for other interviews like State Farm and Liberty Mutual, they did have like, I think I remember specifically Liberty Mutual, they had like literal cases, and they would show you
Mm.
this case, and they'll show you different responses, right? So like a fire happening in California, and then responses this insurance companies could make, and then it says rank those responses, and then like they'll give you time to do this, so you rank them, and then you come back,
Mhm.
and then you explain to them why you rank them the way you rank them. So they really want to know how you think,
Okay.
how you process things, and things like that. So they can be a bit unique, but they do give you an opportunity to show that you're more than just somebody who's just going to take exams and kind of not like
Yeah.
you're a great team member.
Yeah. See, that's kind of what I was hoping for because I'm actually a physics major and I'm
Mm-hmm.
actually getting a minor in actuarial science, but I didn't know how much that would hinder me not being a business major versus being a STEM major.
Certainly that's awesome. I met somebody who was a public affairs major. He'd already passed an exam, so he got in the internship with USA. He's a really cool guy. He's lived in California.
Mhm.
Like, so it's very much possible as long as you can just show that, oh, I have the interest in the analytical
Yeah,
things, and I
that you
can
have
work
the
with
drive and
numbers.
all that.
Yeah,
Mhm. That
those
makes
are the
sense.
really
Okay.
big things. But thank you for your question. Yeah.
No, yeah, thank you.
Any other questions anyone may have, feel free to ask. Drop them in the chat. Also, feel free, we're almost at time. Feel free to drop as well if you need to do something else. I know it's like late Thursday, like and we do have, opportunities. I didn't put this on the slide, but another well, I knew I was going to forget. Another thing that we do have is there is a scholarship fund that hasn't been marketed as clearly. So if you buy, let's say you buy a Coaching Actuaries product, and you can get refunded through the College of Business, through our department. You just have to reach out to me. We're trying to figure out a way to make that a more public thing that people know about, but it's really just started like last semester. So if you're having trouble paying for that, let us know and we'll try and figure out a way, because there is money that is meant for helping us. It just hasn't had a good sort of marketing for it. But if there isn't anything else, thank you all for coming. I will stop recording